The notice should have come with a warning, a chilling whisper of 3 men, 1 canyon, no departure until late spring. Instead, it had merely declared, Thorn Homestead needs a partner. The blizzard hit the very instant Alara Maeve Blackwood stepped through the cabin door, sealing her inside as wind shrieked across the Wyoming peaks. Snow hurled itself against the window panes so hard the glass trembled in its frame. Though the fire inside the stone hearth burned bright, it could not push back the raw cold that followed her in. And then she saw them. 3 men stood across the room, not kin who merely resembled each other, not distant cousins with similar features. 3 identical men, towering, broad-shouldered, raven-haired, eyes the color of burnt umber that watched her with the same steady, unnerving intensity. For a moment, Alara thought the long journey west had finally driven her mad, when the man closest to her stepped forward. His voice was deep and calm. "Miss Blackwood, I'm Jasper Thorne." He gestured slightly. "My brothers, Silas, Orion." The other 2 inclined their heads. Same height, same build, same eyes. Triplets. Alara's fingers tightened around the handle of her simple canvas satchel. "Brothers," she whispered. Jasper nodded once. "We run this homestead together." The wind roared outside, as if laughing at her predicament. 16 weeks earlier, Alara, then 30, had been standing at a rain-streaked window in Philadelphia, staring at a life that was closing in on her. She had aged out of St. Jude's Asylum for wayward girls. She had nowhere to go. No family, no dowry, no protection. Her choices had been simple and cruel. Marry a 60-year-old widower who wanted a housekeeper more than a wife. Toil in a textile mill until her body gave out before she turned 45, or try to survive alone on the unforgiving city streets. That was when she found the advertisement in the Philadelphia Chronicle. Respectable woman wanted for marriage. Wyoming territory. Must endure isolation. Hard work expected. Jasper Thorne, Ironwood Canyon Ranch. Wyoming might as well have been another world, but another world sounded better than no world at all. She had written back with trembling hope. She had told the truth about being an orphan, about knowing how to sew and manage a household, about wanting a home. The reply had been short. Ranch needs a woman. Winters are harsh. Bus fare enclosed. Inside the envelope had been $75, more money than she had ever held in her life. She had taken it as a sign. She had boarded the stagecoach and later the rail, but now she stood in a mountain cabin with 3 identical men while a blizzard sealed the door behind her. "You didn't mention brothers," Alara said quietly. Silas stepped forward. His voice was smoother than Jasper's. "You agreed to marry a Thorne." Her stomach dropped. Asterisk, I assumed there was only one. Asterisk, Orion's expression softened slightly. "We should have explained better." Outside, snow was rising fast. Through the window, she could see nothing but a swirling white curtain. Jasper moved closer, though he kept a respectful distance. "The storm will last weeks," he said. "Once it settles, the passes will be buried until May." May? It was November. Her breath caught. "You mean I can't leave?" "You can try," Jasper said calmly. "But you won't survive the mountain in this weather." The truth settled over her like the snow outside. Now she was trapped. Not by chains, not by threats, but by winter. Jasper picked up her satchel. "You'll have our matriarch's chamber. It locks from the inside." That surprised her. "You'll be safe here," Orion added gently. Asterisk safe? Asterisk, the word mattered more than they could know. She followed them into the cabin. The place was solid, clean, organized. Books lined one wall. Tools were neatly hung. The kitchen shelves were full. It did not feel like the lair of wild canyon men. It felt like a home. Still, 3 sets of identical eyes followed her movements over dinner. They explained their parents had died 7 years earlier. The ranch belonged equally to the 3 of them. They had never separated. They worked as one unit, lived as one unit, and they wanted a partner who understood that. "You expect me to choose?" Alara asked carefully. The brothers exchanged a look she did not understand. Jasper answered, "We expect honesty. We expect partnership." Silas added, "We share the ranch, the work, the profits." Orion's voice was quiet. "We don't compete with each other." Alara understood what they were not saying. They were not asking her to choose one brother and pretend the others did not exist. The idea made her heart pound. "I came here to marry one man," she said firmly. "And legally," Silas replied. "You would." The fire cracked, the wind howled. The cabin felt smaller by the second. "I need time," she said. "You have it," Jasper answered immediately. They did not pressure her that night. She locked her bedroom door and lay awake listening to the storm tear across the mountain. 3 men in the next room. 3 unknown futures. Morning revealed the truth of her situation. The snow reached halfway up the windows. The barn was barely visible. Jasper forced the door open and snow poured inside. "We're snowed in," he said simply. The brothers went to tend the animals, leaving her alone in the cabin. Alara explored carefully. The shelf held novels and poetry. The kitchen was stocked with preserved vegetables and flour. Everything was orderly. These men were not reckless. They were disciplined, prepared. She found their family ledger on a bedside table. In the margin beside one passage was written, 3 sons, 3 blessings. The words stirred something in her. When the brothers returned, she asked to help. "You don't have to," Orion said. "I don't want to be useless," she replied. Jasper studied her, then nodded. "Dress warm." The barn was freezing. Her fingers went numb within minutes, but she learned how to milk a cow, how to feed chickens, how to check for illness. Silas explained the books and the accounts. Orion showed her how to preserve food. Jasper taught her how to split wood safely. They did not treat her like glass. They treated her like someone who might belong there. Days turned into a rhythm. Work, meals, evenings by the fire. Silas read aloud from books. Orion carved small wooden toys. Jasper repaired tools. Alara sewed. The storm continued outside. But inside the cabin, something steadier began to form. Trust. They did not enter her room. They did not touch her without asking. They did not look at her as if she were prey. They looked at her as if she were a decision. On the 15th day, Silas finally spoke plainly. "You've seen how we live," he said. "You've seen who we are." Jasper's gaze held hers. "Do you still intend to leave in spring?" Alara looked at each of them in turn. Jasper's strength, Silas's intelligence, Orion's quiet kindness. She thought of Philadelphia, of the mill, of the widower's clammy hand gripping her arm. She thought of the mountain air, the firelight, the way they worked together without speaking. "I don't know," she admitted honestly. Outside, the wind began to rise again. Another storm was coming. And for the first time, Alara realized her fear was not only of staying. It was also of leaving. The canyon had closed behind her. The question now was whether her heart would open in front of her. The storm howled louder, and in the glow of the fire, 3 identical brothers waited for her answer. The second storm lasted 10 days. 10 long days where the world beyond the cabin disappeared completely. Snow climbed past the windows. The barn vanished into white. Even the trees closest to the house blurred into shadows behind blowing ice. Inside, the cabin grew warmer. Not from the fire, but from closeness. Alara no longer locked her bedroom door. She told herself it was because she trusted them. That was true, but it was not the only reason. She had begun to listen for their voices at night. The low murmur of conversation. The steady rhythm of their breathing as they slept in the next room. Silence now felt heavier than sound. On the 18th morning since her arrival, she joined Jasper outside to check the cattle. The cold bit at her cheeks, but she did not complain. "You don't have to prove yourself," Jasper said as they walked through deep snow. "I'm not proving anything," she replied. "I'm learning." He glanced at her, something almost like respect in his eyes. "You are different from what we expected." "What did you expect?" she asked. "A woman who would panic or demand to be taken back to town. And if I had, we would have taken you." She believed him. That mattered more than he knew. By midday, clouds gathered again. The wind shifted. Jasper stopped and studied the sky. "Storm's turning. We head back." They made it to the barn just as snow began falling again. Inside, Orion was finishing chores. Silas arrived minutes later, breath clouding in the cold air. The brothers moved around each other with quiet precision. Alara noticed it more now, the way Jasper lifted heavy beams without hesitation. The way Silas calculated feed portions exactly. The way Orion calmed a nervous horse with a simple touch. 3 different strengths, 1 purpose. That evening, as snow battered the cabin again, Silas spread the ranch ledgers across the table. "We should show her," he said. Jasper hesitated only a moment, then nodded. Alara sat beside them while Silas explained the numbers. 2 harsh winters had reduced the cattle herd, and a mortgage had been taken to rebuild. For $1,500 due April 1st. Her heart tightened. "How much do you have saved?" $1,200, Silas answered. "And when you sell cattle in spring, maybe another $1,500. It was not enough. The fire popped loudly, as if emphasizing the silence that followed. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Alara asked. Jasper's jaw tightened. "It isn't your burden. If I stay, it becomes mine." The 3 brothers looked at her in a way that made her breath catch. She had said if, but she had not said no. The next afternoon brought a knock at the door, a hard knock. All 4 of them froze. No one traveled in winter. Jasper opened the door with a rifle in hand. A tall man stepped inside, brushing snow from his coat. Victor Kincaid, the land speculator who now owned their mortgage, while his eyes swept the room and landed on Alara. "Well," he said with a thin smile, "so, the rumors are true." Jasper stepped between them. "State your business." Kincaid removed his gloves slowly. "Your payment is due April 1st. 5 weeks. I've done the math. You won't have it." "We will," Silas said evenly. Kincaid laughed. "Partial payment doesn't count. I'll take the ranch at auction. Water rights alone are worth more than your debt." Alara felt heat rise in her chest. "You rode all the way up here to tell them that." Kincaid's gaze sharpened. "I rode up here to see what I'll own soon." "And if they pay?" she asked. He shrugged. "Then I'll look elsewhere." He paused near the door. "You might want to settle your domestic arrangement before spring. The county sheriff might find it interesting." Then he left. A silence filled the cabin like smoke. Alara's hands trembled, but not from fear. From anger. "He thinks he's already won," she said. Jasper stared into the fire. "We don't have enough." Alara looked toward the bedroom, toward the wooden trunk she had seen weeks earlier. "Show me your grandmother's tapestries," she said. Orion brought them out carefully. 6 of them, each one stunning, intricate patterns, precise stitching. "Our grandmother sold these in Fort Laramie," Silas said. $300 sometimes. Alara's mind raced. "I can embroider." All 3 men turned toward her. "I learned at the asylum," she continued. "If I make enough, we can sell them in Fort Laramie before April 1st. Jasper frowned. "That's 4 days away by buckboard in good weather." "Then we leave early." Orion looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "You would do that? Work day and night." Alara met his eyes steadily. "If I stay here, this ranch becomes my home, too." No one argued. The next morning, she began. Fabric was cut with careful precision. Patterns sketched late into the night. The brothers handled everything else. Cooking, animals, chores. They refused to let her lift heavy buckets or chop wood. "You're saving us," Orion said once. "Least we can do is keep you warm." She worked 16 hours the first day. Her fingers ached. Her back burned. But the first tapestry was finished in 5 days. It was beautiful. Grandmother would have approved, Orion whispered. She did not stop. Second tapestry. Third. Fourth. As snow fell outside, time narrowed. Sleep became short and restless. On the 10th night of sewing, Orion found her asleep at the table, needle still in her hand. He carried her to bed, despite her protests. "You are not breaking yourself for us," Jasper said firmly the next morning. She sat up stubborn. "I am not breaking. I am fighting." Silas did the math. "At this pace, you'll collapse before you finish." "Then adjust the pace," she said. "But we finish." They compromised. 8 hours of sewing a day, proper meals, sleep. The pile of tapestries grew. 5, 6, 7. Each one more beautiful than the last. The storm eased near the end of February. The sky cleared enough to see the mountains again. On February 26th, Alara finished the 9th tapestry. An everlasting knot pattern. Symbol of commitment. A symbol of promise. She held it up in the sunlight. "It's done." Jasper looked at the stack. Hope flickered in his eyes for the first time since Kincaid's visit. "We leave tomorrow." They loaded the buckboard carefully, wrapped each tapestry in oilcloth, packed food and blankets. The journey to Fort Laramie would be brutal, but staying meant losing everything. That night, Alara stood alone on the porch. The mountains were silent under starlight. She heard boots behind her. Silas joined her. "You've changed this ranch," he said quietly. "I only embroidered fabric. You did more than that." She turned toward him. "And if this fails, then we face it together." The word "together" echoed in her chest. Inside, Orion was checking supplies. Jasper was sharpening tools. 3 men who had given her space, respect, choice. She realized something in that moment. She was no longer choosing between one brother or leaving. She was choosing between fear and courage. And courage felt warmer. When she stepped back inside, all 3 looked up. "We ride at dawn," Jasper said. Alara nodded. "Then we ride as a family." None of them corrected her. Outside, the mountain waited. Inside, hope burned brighter than the fire. They rode before sunrise. The sky was still dark blue, the air sharp enough to sting the lungs. The buckboard wheels creaked over frozen ground as Jasper guided the horses carefully down the mountain trail. Alara sat beside him, the tapestries packed tightly behind them. 9 pieces of hope stitched with sore fingers and stubborn faith. Silas rode ahead on horseback, scanning the path. Orion followed behind, watching the buckboard wheels. But no one spoke much. There was too much at stake. The mountain roads were cruel, even in summer. In late February, they were nearly impossible. Snow drifted high across narrow passes. Twice they had to stop and dig a path wide enough for the buckboard. Alara's hands blistered again despite gloves. "We can rest," Orion told her. "No," she said, pushing snow aside. "Every hour matters." On the second day, wind picked up again. Jasper studied the horizon. "If it turns into a storm, we shelter. We don't risk it." She nodded, but the weather held barely. On the 4th evening, the lights of Fort Laramie appeared in the distance. Alara's throat tightened with relief. They drove straight to the largest general emporium in town. A woman named Madame Du Bois inspected the tapestries one by one. Her fingers traced the patterns slowly. "These are remarkable," she said at last. "Who made them?" "I did," Alara answered. Madame Du Bois's eyes sharpened. "You learned well." "We need to sell all of them tomorrow," Jasper said. "That may not be possible," Madame Du Bois replied carefully. "But there is a charity auction at the Grand Pioneer Inn. Wealthy buyers. If they are impressed, the bidding could climb high." It was a risk, but it was their only chance. The next afternoon, the ballroom was filled with silk dresses and polished boots. Crystal chandeliers glittered above, and Alara felt painfully plain in her simple wool dress. But when the first tapestry was lifted for display, the room fell quiet. The bidding began at $75. Her heart sank. Then a hand rose. $150. Another voice followed. $225. The numbers climbed. $300. $350. The first tapestry sold for more than she had dared hope. The second sold for $300. The third for $375. By the time the 6th tapestry was auctioned, the room buzzed with excitement. Word spread that the stitching rivaled anything for back east. When the final tapestry, the everlasting knot pattern, was lifted, the room grew still. $300, the auctioneer called. $450. The bids rose fast. $750. Silence. The gavel struck. Asterisk sold. Asterisk Alara felt her knees weaken. 9 tapestries at $4,200. Almost enough. "Wait," a voice called. Victor Kincaid stepped forward from the back of the room, a sneer on his face. "I'll offer an additional $300 for the entire collection." The auctioneer looked to Alara. She met Kincaid's gaze. "Sold," she said, her voice steady. 9 tapestries, now totaling $4,500. More than enough. Jasper gripped her hand tightly. "You did it," he said. "No," she whispered. "We did." They left Fort Laramie immediately. There was no time to waste. On April 1st, just before noon, They rode into Ironwood Canyon. Victor Kincaid sat inside the rattlesnake's den as if already celebrating his victory. He looked up with mild amusement. Back so soon. Jasper dropped a leather satchel onto the table. Count it. Kincaid opened it slowly. His expression changed as he counted. $4,500. Exact. Paid in full. The saloon grew quiet. Kincaid closed the satchel. Impressive, he muttered. I misjudged you. He slid the mortgage papers across the table. Your ranch is yours. Alara felt something lift from her chest that she had not realized was crushing her. Outside, word spread quickly. The Thorne brothers had beaten the odds, and the quiet woman from Philadelphia had stitched the victory. When they returned to the mountain that evening, the air felt different, lighter. The ranch stood waiting in golden sunset light. Home. That night, they sat around the fire. No storm, no fear, just warmth. Jasper stood first. To Alara, who fought for this place like it was already hers. Orion lifted his glass. To family, Silas added softly. To partnership, Alara looked at the three men before her. 3 different strengths, 3 steady hearts. I came west looking for safety, she said. I found more than that. I found belonging. Silence settled gently. Jasper stepped closer. Spring will clear the pass in a few weeks, he said. Pastor Eldridge will come. Alara nodded. Ah, yes. She had made her choice long before the tapestries were finished, long before Fort Laramie. I will marry you, she said, meeting Jasper's eyes. Then she looked at Silas, at Orion. And I will build my life with all 3 of you. There was no shock, no hesitation, only quiet certainty. The wedding took place in May. Wildflowers pushed through melting snow. The town gathered out of curiosity at first, then stayed out of respect. Pastor Eldridge married Alara legally to Jasper. But when vows were spoken, all 3 brothers stood beside him. And when she promised loyalty, she looked at each of them. The mountain accepted them. The town slowly did too. Work filled the summer. Cattle multiplied. The garden flourished. Alara's tapestries became known beyond Fort Laramie. Orders arrived by post. Extra income flowed in. But the true wealth of the ranch was not measured in dollars. It was measured in laughter echoing across the yard and shared meals and hands reaching for one another without hesitation. Years passed. Children were born, a strong son first, then twin daughters, then another boy. They grew up calling all 3 men Papa. No one lacked love. No one lacked guidance. If strangers questioned their family, the children only smiled. We have more, the eldest once said proudly. That's all. The ranch prospered, not because of luck, but because 4 people chose courage over fear. One autumn evening, many years later, Alara stood on the porch, watching her children chase each other across the yard. Jasper came behind her, arms steady around her waist. Silas joined them, Orion soon after, for silhouettes against a Wyoming sunset. Do you regret it? Orion asked quietly. She thought of Philadelphia rain against cold windows, of fear, of hunger, of loneliness. Then she looked at the ranch, at her children, at the 3 men who had given her choice instead of force. Not for a single moment, she answered. The wind moved gently through the pines. The mountains stood tall and silent. Alara Maeve Blackwood Thorne had crossed a continent searching for a home. She had found it in the most unexpected way. 3 brothers, 1 mountain, 1 family built not by convention, but by courage. And as the sun slipped behind the peaks, she felt something simple and steady in her heart. She was loved. She was chosen.